Thank you for finding the NSE podcast on YouTube. To find links for our online hospitality security training, check out the video description below. Enjoy the Nightlife Security Podcast.
This episode of Nightclub Security Podcast is brought to you by Black Diamond Radio by Custom Earpiece. Visit customearpiece.com.
Hey kids, it's Adam Carolla, and you're listening to the Nightclub Security Podcast.
Welcome to the Nightclub Security Podcast, a professional resource for the nightclub security industry. Whether you're a nightclub bouncer, guard, owner, or operator, this is the podcast for you. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain. Let's get started.
Welcome, everybody. You listen to the Nightclub Security Podcast. This is your host, Manny Marquez. I'm here with nightclub security industry expert, Robert C. Smith. As always, Robert, good day to you, sir.
How are you, buddy?
Doing well, doing well. We're coming to you live from the Sheraton in downtown San Diego. Robert, you had a meeting this afternoon, and so we just had to meet somewhere midpoint to get a podcast done, and this is where we landed up.
I want to do more of these. The live remote broadcast kind of stuff that we're doing. It's not live, but still, I like to call it live because it seems live when we're on microphones and headsets and a board and people walk by looking.
Everyone's looking at us funny, like, what are these guys doing?
Who do they think they are?
Yeah, who do they think they are?
Who do they think they are?
Some nut jobs. What are the ham radios over there? So anyway, we're coming to you a little bit out of our element today. So if you hear some background noise, that's just what's happening in the world around us. So Robert, we're getting back from Vegas, getting settled. We got a lot of things that we got to get done. A lot of people we have to follow up with.
Still catching up,
but it's good. All in all, good. Good things happening. Wanted to talk about I went out to visit one of our clients, the Old Sod in North Park, and it was an evening visit just to check in on a couple things for them. And one of the neighboring bars, the doorman was wearing flip-flops.
That's a comfortable little look, too.
And it just beyond the fact that he was wearing flip-flops, he was like listfully kicking them off and putting them back on. He was sitting on a stool.
He's young at heart, Manny.
And it was, I was just thinking, if something goes down, there's broken bottles, is the flip-flop the appropriate gear to be wearing?
Have you ever worn flip-flops, Manny?
Of course I have.
Well, have you ever done it?
Not at the job.
Unless your job is a lifeguard. And maybe even then.
But that's appropriate.
But have you ever worn them around your house when you're carrying boxes or doing any cleaning? Anything that flip-flops aren't made for, have you ever worn them for that?
No, because I'm smart and I would not do that.
In a pinch. I mean, I've done it on accident where I said, yeah, I'll help you. And I start picking up a couch to help someone move, and I've got my shorts and flip-flops. It is dangerously uncomfortable. It hurts. Your toes grab. Your ankles hurt. Can you imagine trying to walk someone out while you're wearing flip-flops? The uncomfortableness.
I can't even fathom it.
No, it's stupid. Not only is it stupid because it's not safe, it looks like crap.
Well, I want to know, when he walked into work that day, was there anybody on duty, a manager saying, hey, Bill, maybe you shouldn't, maybe some boots or some steel toes, perhaps?
It reminds me of a gentleman that was in one of our other PSO classes out of L.A. He had he was angry at the little things that younger people did. They didn't get the idea of when you're at work, you're at work. And his pet peeve, and I've seen it, is young people or people in not his generation on their phones. And I remember the guard at the door.
Home.
Yeah, well, that's how you ran your house, when the guard would be on his phone and spending too much time on it. But imagine working the door. And to me, it's as bad as your flip-flop story. The guy's talking on his cell phone to a friend or someone while he's checking IDs.
And I'm sure this happens this happens all the time. But
when we were getting ready for this, I think it's really cool if you can send us some of your dumbest things that you've seen, and not rumors and stories you heard of, but things you've seen while you've been out there.
We'll take
rumors and stories. Yeah. Okay.
Urban legends.
Yeah.
Here's the thing I want the door guys to consider from a manager perspective and from a customer service perspective. When you are on your cell phone and you are trying to engage the guest, here's the message that I think you're sending. That the guest is not the most important person at that time. Which in my mind, when that guest walks through your front door, walks up to your front door, they are the most important thing. And that's where your attention should be focused. So if you're on your cell phone, if you're texting, that just sends...
What about the guy you saw drinking a Bud?
Yeah, I've seen that before. I've seen where there's like the little ledge outside, the molding around the outside of the building. The guy's got a Budweiser. He's got a couple of them lined up. He's
Taking the edge off before
Yeah.
a big night.
Which, you know, I've seen, and just in a security capacity, if you're impaired and you're trying to babysit everyone else who's impaired, you know, it's like what's it, dogs watching horses or horses watching dogs or whatever.
A drunk watching a drunk.
Yeah.
Even if you're not drunk, the assumption is you are. Drunk watching a drunk's never good.
I know what happens, but please consider it. Please consider not being on your cell phone unless you're actually using your cell phone as a tool.
Wear some good non-slip tennis shoes or shoes that are appropriate.
Be prepared for your job.
Stay off your cell phone. Tell your significant other that you're busy. You'll call them on a break.
Yeah, and if managers, if you allow that, consider no cell phones at work.
It's just
I used to take them away like little kids. Like, give me your cell phone. I'll give it to you at the end of the shift.
Yeah, did that work for you?
Yeah, my staff was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, they still would sneak it, you know, from time to time, but at least they were smart enough to go to the bathroom and go into a stall and then
Out of the public eye.
Out of the public eye.
Yeah.
Which is the main thing.
Yep, I agree, 100%.
All right, so that was my little encounter out in North Park in San Diego. Robert, you have some news for us?
Well, I first want to say hi to, you know, and I'm going to butcher this kid's name, I'm positive. I don't know if it's Joachim Kofler.
I think it's Gochim.
Gochim, pronounced with a G, not a J, even though it's spelled with a J. Joachim in Italy. Anyway, Gochim, our friend in Italy. How about that one? Our friend in Italy.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
If we butchered your name, we apologize. I know you're going to listen to this. You're going to hear us.
Thanks for the note. We really appreciate it. We're glad you're catching up on the podcasts and hitting our website and following us on Facebook and listening to our tweets.
A few days back, I sent you an email. I'm like, we're getting these downloads from Italy. I wonder who's in Italy. And it just happened that he, the next day, he sent us an email.
Yep. Within a few days, he sent us an email asking about our training. And I've responded back to you. I hope you got it and everything is good and you know which course you'll be taking. The new hire course is for the new guy, and the full course, the National Platinum, would be something you would like to take then. So
yeah,
thanks again for the email and the you know, I'm going to read what you wrote here. So you've listened to our podcasts, you're reading our blogs, you're on our site, you've reviewed some of our training, and you put in parentheses, and I really appreciate this. This is what really makes me feel good about what we're doing. At this point, a huge thank you for your awesome work. And, you know, the countless blog entries, the podcast, basically everything the internet had to offer him for free. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate that.
You know, and part of why we do these podcasts and part of why we blog and write articles is, first and foremost, we want to offer ourselves as a resource to the industry, to doormen, to security guards, and it's all about just getting the information out there and starting conversation and creating a community. So we're glad you're a part of it. Keep listening and pass this along, please. Robert.
So regarding news, this is something that I'll use probably for my next year and a half of training. When I teach different levels of crimes, I try to impress on guards the major difference between a hardcore violent felony, someone getting hit over the head with a bottle, a shooting, a stabbing you within your venue, and they're fairly rare, and the common everyday misdemeanor, the push and shove, the hit, and how when some of these you don't need to go real far. Handle it simple. Handle it easy. Well, there's a news story out of Reno where a guard at a club and a casino, his last name is Johnson. I don't see his first name, but he had asked a guy to leave, some sort of problem in the venue. Guards asked him to leave. Okay, we're okay there. He's leaving the venue. He's not only asked to leave the venue, he's asked to leave the casino property, and he's doing so, but he's doing so with a little bit of mouth. And he gets out, starting to go towards the doors of the casino, still inside the building, and a couple of other guards told Johnson, you know, that punk, you should have had him arrested. You should have detained him and had him trespassed. And I guess what they're referring to is when you have someone trespass, like many cities, there's a form you fill out. The police will be called. They issue them this form, and they cannot come back on their property. It's like a formal 86 process. Well, Johnson takes it upon himself to go now detain this guy and have him trespassed. Now, mind you, he's already moving towards the door. He's gone. He's leaving the club. He's leaving the casino.
So they've already started the process of getting him out the door, but
he's
then
going.
The level of intensity changes as they're getting him out.
They make a decision to go ahead and re-engage this guy. Johnson, according to the affidavit in the news story, and the affidavit is what I really base my story on, is because the affidavit is from the police department that arrested him for second-degree murder. Yeah, second-degree murder. He goes to the kid, wraps him up around his body, arms to his side, Johnson puts his arms around him in a bear hug style, picks him up, and witnesses report he slams him to the ground, hitting his head. The kid goes unconscious. The medics are called. He's taken away and later dies. Now, although this happened in December of 2013, the investigation, remember, the police realized there's no reason to hurry. Complete a good, thorough investigation, and they did. They got all video. They talked to all witnesses, and then they went and made the arrest of Johnson. And what is telling, and this is what I'll use in the training, what's telling is in the affidavit, it lays out just what you can't do, where it says that the level of force that was used to make this questionable arrest and detention for an obviously low-level type crime is not proportionate to what should be done. Basically, Johnson went over the top. The guard went over the top. There was no reason to do these things when your guest was already leaving. Get him another day, and if he messes up, then do your trespass.
So I think in situations like this, sometimes we let our emotions get the best of us, and that begins to be the dictating force of how you handle a situation. And, it's again, we armchair quarterback here, but it's never easy to be in those situations. But the point is that you got to remind yourself of what is the actual situation at hand, how much intensity or force or hurry do I need to put into place to resolve the problem? Yeah. And guys just go over the top. And
it's hard sometimes. I mean, if you're not, and if you've attended my training or you understand this concept, relax, take a breath, look at what you have. You got one of the lowest level misdemeanor crimes in the country. He's trespassed, but he's leaving. Why do you need to re-engage? Because you're pissed, your ego, you think he punked you?
Well, I think sometimes it's easy to get, you said ego, which is the perfect word, and people don't want to be shamed. This is my house. This is my bar.
What was it?
This guy's not going to disrespect me.
What was it that Cartman said? You must respect my authority.
Yeah, you get that little Cartman inside of you telling you that you should be doing something different. But, when you reach that point to where if you're getting steamed about a situation and if you're not thinking rationally, you should know yourself well enough to disengage and allow somebody else to be the primary contact, because that's where things like this happen.
That's right. And although your point is extremely well taken, and that kind of practice or that kind of operation you mentioned would be a practice learned behavior of relieving yourself and letting someone else take over. In this case, I think the listeners, and we'll have a link on the show notes, you can read the news story and read some of the affidavit. I think you'll agree that this was a case where you shouldn't even have re-engaged. Let him walk. He's leaving. That's what you wanted him to do. That's what he's doing. Why are you trying now to go back and re-engage?
All those, again, he's probably, the guest is probably taking shots and probably taking his time just to aggravate you.
But Manny, don't you think we should do a podcast, and I'm really getting to love this topic when I train, is what is a drunk supposed to do?
Yeah, they're supposed to do that.
That's what they're supposed to do. Be stupid, be rude, be loud. And that's what he was doing.
So anyway, that's an unfortunate situation, but something to learn from. And, it's the fact that you're listening to these podcasts, and, this is not the first time that we've mentioned something like this. And so at least you're putting it in your head that, maybe I should handle a situation differently. So pat yourself on the back for even listening to the podcast. And as always, we're trying to build our community as far as an audience, and we'd like for you to pass this along to your coworkers, anybody in the industry who may benefit from this information. And again, we're not offering anything that's spectacular, but at least we're having a conversation and we're getting everyone thinking about these things like,
But one of the really gratifying points when I do train, the second day, usually I get someone that comes in and says, you know what, last night we had this incident start, and I immediately thought of, wait, why am I hurrying? He's just a drunk yelling at the server. He's not being violent. His friends are sitting there laughing. Why am I hurrying? Let me rally my guys. Let me think what I'm going to do first before I jump in there. And the students, the attendees that attend our training will come up and say, you know what? I've always rushed in there, but this is really changing the way I do what I do. The same result occurred. The drunk leaves. But you did it differently where you're more secure and you're safer in doing it. And that's really what we want. So my closing on this is, if you do something that after you listen to our podcast and you think about what we say and what we write and you decide to do it differently, we would really love to hear that. We'll mention you. We'll talk about you. We'll talk about your incident, because we really love to know that we're making an impact on our industry.
Would also be nice to hear is we always talk about hints, tricks, tips, tools in your belt as far as how you handle situations. I'd like to hear, what people are doing as far as those sorts of things. What trick do you have in your bag that you used to handle a situation
Maybe
like
something
this?
you thought of on your own, something you haven't seen, something no one trained you. You just tried it and it started working, and now you're training other people to do the same thing. Those are good things too.
Yeah, we'd like to hear about that. So, Robert, we had again, coming from Vegas, we did a couple of interviews. One of those interviews was with Chris Lenahan. Chris is the author of a Little Black Bar book. He's also, his website's openingabar.com.
What was his app?
His app is My Venue Tracker. I don't know if it's out yet. MyVenueTracker.com.
I think he launched it at the show. I don't know if they're doing some work on it now, but it was launched at the show, My Venue Tracker.
Yeah, and we talk a little bit about it in the interview, but it's basically tracks statistics from the door to give owners a little bit better information on how to manage their operation.
Not so much a security tracking thing, but more of an operational tracking thing.
Yeah, more of numbers and
But we like
counts.
the mindset, and Chris has made mention that he wants to work with us a little bit more. Chris is a dynamic go-getter guy out of, I believe it's Portland.
Yeah, he lives in Portland now.
Has a couple of bars up there.
He has several bars in the area. He's just one of the big guys in the arena as far as the industry, consulting, design, concept, build outs. He's just one of the big guys that is doing it and doing it well.
Yeah.
And so the interview coming up is just our discussion in Las Vegas for the 2014 Nightclub and Bar Show, which was awesome. If you haven't been, again, we highly recommend if you're in the industry, if you're an owner, operator, a guard, a bartender. Next year it's going to be, again, at the Las Vegas Convention Center. We have links on our show notes that you guys can click through and get more information about that. But this is we were at the convention center and we sat down with Chris for about half an hour, and this is the interview. So why don't you stick with us? We'll give it a listen, and we'll be right back.
When Nightclub Security Consultants recommends radios to our clients, we recommend Black Diamond Radios by Custom Earpiece. Why? They're the best in the business. Simple as that. Tired of the high cost of replacing broken radios? It's time to beef up your nightclub communications. The Black Diamond CE450 radio is the most durable radio on the market. Black Diamond designed and built this radio with nightclubs and bars in mind. Made for high noise environments, the CE450 is shock and water resistant and has a long-lasting battery. Your security team has a tough job. They need a tough radio. For 2 years, if they can break the CE450 radio, Custom Earpiece will replace it. Period. No hassles, no questions. Need more than just radios? CustomEarpiece.com is your one-stop shop. Radios, headsets, custom ear molds, earpieces, adapters. Just go directly to CustomEarpiece.com for all your radio needs. Got a question? Call Custom Earpiece during business hours, and you will always speak to a live person, ready to assist you. CustomEarpiece.com customer service is second to none. Get 10% off your purchase today. Just click through the banner on the nightclubsecurity.com homepage or the Nightclub Security Podcast show notes. Use promo code NIGHTCLUB7. That's nightclub and the number 7. Visit CustomEarpiece.com and order today.
This is the Nightclub Security Podcast. This is your host, Manny Marquez. I am, as always, with Nightclub Security Industry Expert Robert C. Smith.
Hey, Manny.
Hey, Bob. We're coming to you live from the Las Vegas Convention Center for the 2014 Nightclub and Bar Show. Very special guest with us in studio today, hospitality industry expert Chris Lenahan. Chris, how you doing today?
Gentlemen, doing great. Good to be here with you. Manny, Robert, how you guys doing?
Great. Glad to see you. Thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for giving us your time today. So, Chris, you're a nightlife and hospitality industry expert. You've been in the field for quite a while. Your website's openingabar.com. Got a couple other projects that you're working on. You're also the author of the Little Black Bar book, a comprehensive guide to starting and owning and operating your own bar and nightclub. That's
Yes.
the right title, right?
Yep.
Where can they find that book?
You can find that on Amazon.com or on our website, openingabar.com. It's available on both of them.
Okay. So I'm curious, how did you get started in the industry?
Whew, boy. You know what?
What was the first thing that got you in there?
Yeah, the first thing. 20 years ago, I actually started the industry off in the lighting, sound, and video segment. So I opened a video company. I would lease out video projectors to nightclubs, and I pretty much had a niche market on the entire West Coast. I started here in Vegas, expanded out into the West Coast, and that kind of got me into the nightclub industry. And after a while, what I started to do was just transition myself into more of the inner workings. And I started here in Vegas really with all the nightclub owners during the nightclub boom back in the 90s and into the early 2000 era, when we had all the mega clubs opening, Studio 54, C2K, Coyote Ugly, Raw, the big giant mega clubs. And I really was able to entrench myself into the back end. And all of those venues, I was there from beginning to end, and I had a really great opportunity to learn.
Were you married at the time?
Unfortunately, no. No, I am married. Unfortunately, no, because
Right
I'm
on.
sure. Yeah, I would have saved a lot more money. You know, being single in Vegas is definitely a challenge.
So you had not come from an actual hospitality background. You were doing audio, video, lighting, that sort of thing. And and being able to see, I guess, the construction, the buildup of these places. How did you get into the management side of things?
Really, you know, what happened was over years and years and years of watching poor operations go on and a day-to-day occurrence, you know, what I learned was what not to do. And that is where all the knowledge that I have now comes from, is by watching it over and over and over, what not to do, the failings of a venue, and pretty much just understanding with a little common sense is how to fix that and how to resolve that. And remember, back in the day, there was no such thing as a budget. We had no budgets. It's like, oh, you know, let's do $100,000 wall piece right there, and we'll do $200,000 or $300,000. And you know what? Let's spend $2.5 million on lighting. So there was no budgets back then. So if we did make a mistake in a venue, it was no big deal. We just rip it down, rebuild it, remodel it, do whatever it took to make it successful.
When you say you saw mistakes happening, was there a common mistake? Was there an area within the operations that where you're seeing, you know, where the problem was?
The majority of the operations that I saw in the early days were the learning curve was for the first time that the budgets were so large that the designers of the venues they had no one to go to. There was no professional nightclub and bar designers really back then that were like the go-to guys. So a lot of them were using restaurant and hotel designers who didn't understand the needs and the requirements of a nightclub environment.
And the nuances of how to set it up.
Flow, layout, patterns, how to set up, you know, for security posts, how to set up where to put DJ booths, staging.
And I would think one of the worst parts, and I've seen it from Manny showing me, is the way the bar gets set up. The functionality of what a true boots on the ground bartender has to do, and then the bar is designed by some
a lot of times
hotel kitchen guy.
Yeah, a lot of times the designers are people who haven't actually worked in the environment, so they really don't understand the flow or the workflow or the ergonomics of it. So it's
That's
always
correct.
So you started mainly on the design side of things. You eventually got into ownership.
That's right. 2002, my first little foot in the door. I knew I had to transition myself to the owner hat, and first transition was in Tempe, Arizona, with a little spot called Freedom Nightclub on Rural and Apache. The ultimate little college bar right there with high-end. At that time, it was the blossoming of the EDC generation. So really, you know, the electronic music was just coming to the forefront, and my partners at the time were really into it. They were great guys and had the vision.
What year was that when you started that?
2000, 2001? I think it was 2001.
And I was actually a fan of yours before I even knew who you were, because one of my favorite bars in Tempe was the Library.
There you go.
And I really fell in love with that place. I remember going there multiple times. Like, this is just the design of it, the overall concept of it. It was really a dynamic place, and it was my early stages of being a manager, and I really taken to what you had done there. You want to talk a little bit about?
So I had just finished Coyote Ugly, working with the Pure Group at the time with Steve Davidovici, great guy, and really learned a lot from him. And they had just finished Coyote Ugly, and at that point I said, hey, you know, let's take this. This is the perfect avenue to take in a college town. So we just headed in that direction down the street and had an amazing location right there on the corner. We had 80,000 college kids. It was voted the #1 party city in the country for who knows how long. one of the great things is once we took that venue, we had such a great opportunity to make it blossom because of the neighborhood itself is a very welcoming. One of the great things about Tempe is that city is really bar friendly, which is hard to find in so many
especially
areas.
during those days, the early 2000s. Tempe was, I mean, a lot of hot concepts came out of the Tempe area. Like, I mean, it was kind of like center ground zero for as far as concepts and bars, colleges, those sorts of things. So
yeah, and you know, I mean, that was the great thing. We were below Hooters and we were above the Big Bang dueling piano bar. So a lot of synergy between all the venues. You know, it was a great time, and I had a good time, and that was, you know, we flipped it a couple years later, and it was ran for quite a while. I got Bar of the Year 2002 for that.
Yeah.
So
I remember after Manny and I started working together, he mentioned that bar and told me about the concept. He told me about the idea of the way it was laid out. It impressed the hell out of him.
yeah, it was something that had always stuck in my mind because that was the early days of my managing career. It was also around the same time where Maloney's came into conception. Maloney's had a location in San Diego, and that was actually a lot of the personnel and people coming out of the Tempe area coming into San Diego. That's how I got tied into Tempe. So
yeah, San Diego's a market I've always wanted to get into.
you should.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
There's a lot of people down there right now that are not doing it right.
Got a lot of stuff on my plate.
Yeah, I mean,
You're not going to get back in ownership. You're not. You're not unless you're an investor.
No, you're still in it.
I'm still an owner. I'm
You're
still
still
got existing bars and nightclubs, and we're doing another project right now. I'm working on a project.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you will be in San Diego doing it right.
I know. You know, listen, you can take me right up the smart guy list. I got married recently, okay?
There you go. There you go. Well,
She's
not a subscriber.
That'll keep you busy. So let's talk about the projects that you've done up into. I mean, you've done quite a few things, and you're working in Portland now, right?
Yeah, most of our venues were up in Portland. We just worked on a venue out in Nebraska. Great venue, the Rail Yard. We did a project with a gentleman out there. We did first and third floor, so Long Wells on the first floor and Rule G on the third floor. Brought something new out there, a little Vegas style on the third floor and on the first floor.
What city?
Lincoln, Nebraska.
In Lincoln.
So out of all this experience that you've had as far as the projects you've been involved with, is there a particular bar that you've seen somewhere, it doesn't have to be in the United States, that you've seen that just blew you away? That really made an impression on you?
Boy, that's a tough
or
one.
Do you always have a better idea?
You know what? It's not that I have a better idea. It's that I think one of the biggest challenges is that every time I walk into a venue, I'm working. That's the downfall.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm sure every time you walk into a venue, you can't just be staring at you're staring at security
I bet
guards going, what are you doing?
Your wife hates that too, right?
She absolutely does.
Would you pay attention to me?
Yeah.
We're trying to have a nice dinner here.
Yeah. You know, it's just a challenge because when I walk into anyone else's venue, I look at everything as a whole. So I'm looking at the service, I'm looking at the attachment points, the ambiance, the vibe, and that's something so many venues have such a tough challenge.
Do you find that when you go into wherever you're at, traveling with your wife, without her, and you find a venue that is doing, I don't know, let's just say 3 out of 10 things right, don't you find that amazing that you can physically see that, feel what they're doing right? I mean, when I've done it, I want to go tell them, hey, just by the way, I do this a lot. And what you're doing there is fantastic. And sometimes I'll tell them, have you ever done that, and let them know?
Yeah, you know, that is something I will. You know, I go to different cities, and sometimes, you know, people know me in the Chicago area. I'll go into different bars, and they, you know, they want my opinion, and I'll give it to them. I'll give them a no BS opinion of what I think of their venue. And a lot of people do a good job, and I think that is by far 90% better than a lot of venues do, just to get that. You know, it's a very challenging industry. I mean, for us, this industry is one of the most competitive industries in the world. You have such a short shelf life. The liability is insane. You know, it's such a challenging industry. So when I do go into venues, and you know, what's funny is I'll go into one venue. I was just in Mongolia working on a venue, and the designers out there did absolutely an amazing job with the space. I just came in and tweaked it to make it work. And I really, you know, it's so impressive for me because I travel all over the world and do venues, and to see these designers all over the world, and I enjoy looking at these people and what they're doing from a different perspective, because people in all over the world don't all party the same.
Yeah.
So it's refreshing to see this whole new perspective on some venues, and I enjoy that. Like I said, if you want to know a good venue, it's VLVT in Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar. I was just out there. Absolutely gorgeous venue, and I think one of the best things they did was the design, and the layout is amazing.
What was in particular about the design that really caught your eye?
It's built into sections. So what we did is we helped them cordon it off into 3 sections, 3 compartments. So what you can do is you can load the venue as you go along, always giving it the perception of being busy. So you load the front. They have like a little high-end martini bar. And then that then loads into a little, they've got an owner's lounge, which is amazing. And that then opens up into the nightclub. So you can continually load these venues up so it always appears busy until finally you open the nightclub up at 9
Which from
o'clock.
a design standpoint is actually something that a lot of owners don't consider, because, you know, for the listener, when you walk into a room and if it doesn't feel busy, the energy level is not there. And so you have a hard time really giving somebody a reason or incentive to stay. And so the idea of compartmentalizing a space so that you can keep that energy, and if you need to, you expand it until, you know, you have a full venue. So that's always something that I look forward to.
And we see that all the time. Right now, space is your enemy. So smaller is actually better. We're teaching people now when they call us, we're saying, you know, limit yourself on an 8,000 square foot venue. Take that, chop it up into 2 pieces, offer 2 separate forms of entertainment, throw your bathrooms in the middle, put a corridor, and then you're able to.
So smart. Yeah.
It really works for everyone right now. That's what's working. You're offering the bar hopping experience to your customers, and with convenience, so they can carry their drink back and forth. It's like you know, Vegas anywhere.
There are bars in Mexico that do that, and they purposely, it's almost a weird thought, but I'm thinking of one that has 5 different venues under one roof.
That's right, yeah.
5 different music types, 5 different bar setups, 5 different sets of uniforms for not just servers, but bartenders and guards. But you can bar hop to hear 5 different types of things or do 5 different types of things.
And I think that's genius. Right now, that's the trend right now, because the issue is that because of technology, right now we have very little, we have a very short attention span, right? If your phone doesn't load up something, your Facebook page in like 2.5 seconds, you're like, you just get out of it and go do something else.
And blame your carrier.
Yeah, blame your carrier. That's right. So
hate AT&T.
Yeah, oh, dude, I'm with you. Yeah. So, and that's one of the challenge that you have right now is the attention spans are so short and becoming shorter. It's really you're fighting to keep the customer entertained, and having the ability to offer them multiple types of entertainment is huge.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the cell phone, because, and I kind of want to see how this relates to what we do. And you mentioned one thing, that the attention span is different. How else do you see that how technology has changed the way people interact, either in a venue or with each other, the whole dynamic of creating this experience when a lot of times you're competing with a cell phone?
That's, you know, that was part of my seminar today. It's so funny is I did this list of what the competition is right now in 2014 and 15. And our competition right now is Facebook, the internet, Netflix, movies, you know, movies on demand, Candy Crush, exactly. I mean, you know, it's so challenging. You're fighting for people's attention. You're fighting for them to be socially interactive, and the problem is people are actually headed in the opposite direction, and they're becoming reclusive due to technology. Technology is enabling people to
which is interesting, because you say that coming from your perspective, and we see it, you know, from a security standpoint from a different perspective, because that technology is separating people, and a lot of times you find that people don't know how to interact with each other. Like they're using the phone or the screen as the way they interact with the outside world.
It's really changing the social application of what I think all 3 of us grew up with, where we can now tell someone we're late without seeing their face in disappointment, where kids at 16 and 17 are using their cell phone, and that's where you're going with this, right, Manny?
Yeah.
Where they'll break up with their other on their phone because they don't have to experience that negative feeling of disappointment and letting someone down. And when I give seminars regarding technology, I'll say, how many of you have called out to work? Hands go up. How many of you texted out to work? hands go up and they start laughing. I said, let's talk about why you do that. And they're not really thinking about it, but you don't get that negative feeling of looking someone in the eye and saying, hey, I'm sick today, I can't come in.
Yeah.
And that in turn changes so much more, especially with your guests and the experience they have at your venue, because they're not used to the face-to-face interaction.
Yeah. One of the things we see that working the positive and the negative of technology and being able to load things on Facebook so quickly, remotely and mobile, is we use the mobile tool right now to show our guests how busy we are. Use that with, quick photos, and we now our focus videos. So what we'll do is we'll shoot a quick video with the phone showing how busy and how fun the venue is, really getting people to understand that, the party is here, sending that out. And one of the great things the owner disco designer says to me over and over and over, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, what's a video worth?
1 million.
A million, exactly. So, that's really our focus right now. But the bad thing is where the tool is used against you, and the tool is used against you when your bar is slow, you'll see other competitors where people are like, they'll walk into the venue and say, oh, it's slow. They'll text all their friends, and that just crushes you right there. So, yeah, it'd be nice if you can get a little cell phone dampening thing, right? Is block everyone's
signal when it's slow, and then when it's busy, you open up. Yeah, we're packed all the time. Yeah. And that was like one of the things that we kind of go back and forth about, an inside video being broadcasted on the internet. He likes it, and my argument was always, one, sometimes your clients don't like you filming on the inside and then broadcasting that out. And another thing is that sometimes when you're slow, you don't want that to be seen, because you want the perception that you're always busy, you're always fun, you're always hopping. So
that's right. As long as your wife doesn't see you with your girlfriend, I think you're good.
Yeah.
And you certainly don't want your girlfriend seeing you with your girlfriend.
Robert was murdered outside of a club earlier today.
2 females.
That's right.
So let me ask you this. In regards to security, have you seen any trends on your
Club
side
security,
of things?
bar security? I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask, and I thought it was silly because I think our listeners know the answer from when you started 20-something years ago to now. But do you see any other trends currently?
Right now, with the biggest thing that we're seeing over the last, I would say, 2 years is us moving to more of an in-house protective thing for our staff. So what I mean by that is 6 months ago I went out. There was a local police uniform store. What they do is they order all their bulletproof vests for the police. Per their union, they have to change out their vests every couple of years to whatever new technology, lighter, better protection. So one of the things our local police department does up there is they'll either not get the vest, or it didn't fit right, or for whatever reason, or they upgrade their vest to a new vest. They'll leave it at that store, and then the credit is already there. So the store's already got their money for the vest. What we did is we went out, found the store through our local police department. They sent us down there, and through us just asking, they had 13 bulletproof vests that were the full level 3A. I bought every single one of them for $150 a piece. They were $900 vests, and I turned around and just sold them just for cost right back to my employees and all my door guards. Gave a couple away, and really what we're seeing right now is a real push with local police departments to armor up our front door guys, because what we noticed, there was just a recent killing recently in Portland. That's
Mike Rizzo.
Right. Mike Rizzo was
But he didn't die.
He didn't die, but he was shot by another security guard. That guy was a security guard.
Really?
He was an old ex-security guard, DPSST certified guard from another club a long time ago.
So the trend that you're seeing is, as things, I'm just going to say this, is they're getting more violent. And so one of the trends you're seeing is perhaps giving your front door guys a little bit more protection in the event that something does happen. Robert, have you seen?
Well, and it opens up another, and Rick Beislein, our follow him at Twitter at PD Trainer, but former law enforcement, he's current law enforcement. We absolutely have noticed that trend of nightclub bar violence nationally increasing over the last 6 to 7 years. And I have absolutely seen a steady increase, and an increase of venues that are now seeking out body armor. Now they're deciding and wondering if we should arm 1 or 2 of our guards. Now they're doing different things like that, but no one has addressed the police side of this. The police are doing what police do. They'll see the trend, they'll adapt, and they'll move on, and they'll see the next trend and do the same thing. But they're not working with these frontline guards to help them bring their level up. And because of that, we're seeing more guards stabbed, shot, or multiple shootings at clubs. And the police are still not seeing that they need to get in there and address this as a public, nuisance.
A lot of times I want to say that that's almost the mouse catching up with the cat, what you're saying. The way I look at it is the fault of the majority of these shootings end with the owners making bad decisions with their venues, right? And one of the trends we see right now is promoters. Promoters they have no skin in the game. They come into your venue and they don't care if you're overcrowded. They don't care who the crowd is. They don't care.
They're just there to make some money.
They're there to make some money. They have no liability. They can walk away. They don't care what the heck happens to your venue. And what we see is a trend of owners not making smart decisions on who they're working with because they're becoming desperate. And they're desperate to make that revenue to keep things going, which, you got to feed your family, you got to put food on the table, but there's a smart way to do it, and then there's the not so smart way to do it.
Do you use promoters in any of your venues?
We actually try to do all in-house promotions at our venues. If we do bring people in, we have 100% control. We don't do events. We don't do stuff like that. But every venue is different. I'm not going to say that all promoters are bad because there's not. There's a lot of great promoters out there.
I can tell you what I think is going to happen based on what you said, and I agree with you. I've seen that too nationwide. I really believe that what's going to happen is, like everything, the government will come in and then mandate promoters get licensed, promoters pay, promoters have insurance, and it will do away with that underground promoter, but they'll just go further underground and to do different things.
Well, even in like cities like our city, San Diego, a lot of times in the conditions of a liquor license, promoters are not allowed because, you can't use outside promoters. Yeah.
And recent legislation in D.C. mandates licensing, insurance, and background checks and a fee for a promoter.
And that's actually something that we haven't touched on this podcast is the idea of security around using promoters because they really, like you said, they have no skin in the game. They're there to make a buck. They're in and out. They really don't have they're not worried about what's going to happen after this or any sort of event that's going to happen inside of the event. So, it's a really good point that you make.
Yeah, it's the venue owner loses control, so no longer has control. When you're bringing promoters in, you're saying, here, you do it, and that's the problem.
I'll take the bar. You can have the door. Enjoy yourself. Run through my house.
Yeah.
How many places do you have in Portland?
We have 2, and we're working on a 3rd one right now. Possibly a deal with Disco Designer, which is out in overseas in Europe, and we're working on a project with them right now. I'm flying over there in May. Peter's he's actually created a new, I don't want to call it a mobile club, but it's almost like a giant Lego set of one of the most high-tech nightclubs you've ever seen. It's super amazing, so we're going over to see it unveiled in May, and it's pretty much you just find a dirt lot somewhere, you get power and water and sewage there, and plop this thing down and go.
So what are they using as far as the structure? Is it...
They ship everything over in shipping containers, and everything is it's one of the coolest things. I really can't disclose a lot of it because it's kind of secret right now.
Sure.
I mean, it's a lot of new technologies going into it, and what Peter's doing is pretty amazing. So we're hoping to go over there and work with Peter to open a couple of these up in different parts of the world too. So we're looking at different countries to open some of these mobile venues up. So you can put it up for 6 months, tear it down, move it a couple miles over, and set it right back up. All the
that's really
facilities
interesting.
are in it. Yeah.
And you said that's coming when?
We're gonna go check it out in May. We're flying over to the factory in May to see the first launch of the first venue.
And the rollout's going to be as far as like the first time it's in use?
It'll all the first one over there will be in May, so we're going to go to the grand opening, and then for us to look at options and where to put it and what's all needed, and they're going to figure out what issues are associated with it. One of the things we've been working with Peter is just helping him understand the laws that go along with occupancy laws and permits and stuff like that here in the U.S. and the challenges. That's why we're looking at other countries overseas like Costa Rica, Thailand, Vietnam, China, doing things where there is available land and it's easy to go find a spot. The regulations are a lot easier to work with. Yeah, but
it's very exciting. I had one last question before we kind of go to the close of the show. How big of a role does security play in customer service for your venues?
Oh, huge. Security, they're the first people you see at the door 90% of the time, and the last people you see as you're walking out. And it's just such a challenge. And I think one of our challenges that we have right now is the burnout factor. Guards just get burnt out, from dealing with just knucklehead situations constantly over and over and over again. So that's one of the things. And we work with a great guy up in our venue, Timo. He runs a big, all the security guys at all our venues. So, one of the things he understands is just kind of how it's placement. Placement is huge. You find, as long as you can adapt the location of the guard to the guard's temperament, and you put you put them where they're strongest, right? And that's a challenge. And unfortunately, a lot of owners are like, oh, hey, you're a security guard, you go over there and good luck. And there's no training involved, and there's no, it's a pat on the back, and here's your security shirt, with no formal training involved. Yeah. And 6 months later, the guy picks somebody up and dunks him, right? And for us, it's understanding that you need to be moving people around. You need to be talking to your guards. You need to communicate with them to move them into different positions. One of the things we're able to do right now is move them from venue to venue. So that change of scenery for them is,
it's a great idea.
Is very healthy.
That's a great idea. Because a lot of times, venues they'll usually have the front door guy, the guy IDing as being the same guy night after night after night. And he's the one that's taking the brunt of the abuse. He's the one that is most likely to snap in a situation. So the rotation of a staff is a very good idea, very good tip. I wanted to ask you, do you have anything else coming up? Do you have any other projects you're working on?
So, for the first time, I'm kind of moving on to the technology front. We're doing a brand new technology app called My Venue Tracker. So I've developed this app over the last, I've been working on it for about a year now, and it's been a grind.
It never goes as quickly as you want it to, right?
It never, it never does. It never does. So, we really have created a great tool for owners. And I've been looking at this for years and years and years.
What does it do?
It is, for the first time, I developed the app for owners and investors. That's what the original intent of the app was developed for. So as an owner of a bunch of venues, every single night, what I get is a text message,
the
hey,
numbers.
How you doing? How's the bar? How's everything going? That's me texting all my bars. It's basically copy, paste, send, copy, paste, send, copy, paste, send to all my bars, right? How's everybody doing? And then, we're doing good. You get texts back all night long, because, when you're running multiple venues, you want to know where you're at.
Yeah, of course.
Then, of course, at the end of the night, what's the final text I get is the numbers. I get the numbers sent out to me every single night. No problems. Good night. Here's the numbers. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to take that, and for the first time, I wanted to put that into a cloud format. So now we made it super simple. There's no scanning. It's just a manual tracking system. As everybody comes into the venue, they're manually tracked, paid or comped. You can select how much the cover charge is. You can vary it from women to men. You can change it as time goes on and how busy the venue gets. Everything is super easy to do. What it does then is it then goes into a live dashboard. And that live dashboard is your control system, because nightclubs right now have no control set up. Right now, you put somebody at the door, you cross your fingers, you can trust them that they're not going to steal from you, right?
Yeah.
You put a guard next to the cover girl.
And that's it. Yeah. And who knows, they don't start dating.
Maybe some red tickets, and that's your accountability.
Exactly, yeah. You throw a security camera that, of course, you can't see garbage on. I mean, the things are garbage, right? So, and you hope and you pray. So now what we've done is we've put a control in place that counts the people as they do come through, and counts when they're charged, and tracks all of this information. What it does then is it puts it into the control system, which is a live dashboard that the owner can watch on their phone or on their computer remotely, and it's a live count of how many people come into the bar every hour. So you'll see a bar graph. Now, the great thing about the tool is it has an automatic comparison set for last week.
Oh, nice. So you're doing comparisons for the previous week.
You see week over week numbers. You can say, hey, we're doing better this week, or hey, we're doing worse. You can judge where you're at. Now, the other thing you're able to do is you're able to change that comparison to how did I do yesterday? How did I do last year? How
Same
did
day.
I do last month? The same day? Exactly. You're able to see year over year, month over month, and week over week where you're at in comparison. And that data is what's so important because you're able to track your trends.
Yeah.
The next thing it allows you to do is if you take your cover charge and your bar sales, right, you can say, oh, look, I had 500 people come in this week and my bar sales were X and my door was X. Last week, I had 500 people come in. Why is my bar sales $2,000 lower? Who was working that night, right? Why is my cover charge $1,000 higher? Who was working that night? You're able to, at that point, simply and quickly see why, what, and figure out how you can make it good.
Yeah, it's finding out how you can make some adjustments to maximize what sort of revenue you're pulling in each night. Where can they find the app?
You're able to find the app on iTunes right now. In the iTunes store, it is one word, My Venue Tracker, or on Google Play, also My Venue Tracker, or you can find it on our website at myvenuetracker.com.
And is it a paid for app?
Right now, it is free if you download it right now, but that won't last long.
How long?
Oh, man.
When you decide.
When we decide,
There you
yeah.
go.
So we're beta testing it right now. We're allowing people to download it and use it and beta test it. One of the great things we're able to do is now once people are going to start dropping it all over the country, we're going to have people already downloading it all over the country. And it's going to allow you, we have a ranking function on there. And what this does is it transfers your data, your hard numbers data, into percentage data. And it allows you as a bar owner to say, wow, hold on a second, it was super slow tonight. If you hit the ranking function, it'll let you know if everyone else in the country was slow also. Because right now,
Oh, interesting.
I have so many friends that own nightclubs and bars everywhere. I'll call them up. I call my buddy in San Diego. I call my buddy in Newport Beach. I call my buddy out in Chicago. And I'm just like, hey, how are you guys tonight? I got a buddy in Tampa. How are you? And I'll call or text everybody and say, how are you? And across the board, it's exactly the same. It's the craziest thing ever.
So you're going to, next year or the year after, when they do the top 100 for nightclub and bar, they'll be able to look at My Venue Tracker to truly see the top 100.
To truly see guest counts that come through.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's awesome. That sounds like a really interesting project. I'm gonna have to download
And
that
obviously,
one.
from a security standpoint, I'm thinking of about 5 things for you that
Yeah.
you can use this app. If you can add a couple of things in there relating to what police do, called crime mapping. Crime mapping in your community. You can go to any community website, go to the police website, and look at crime trends, and they'll show you where the car prowl was, and the burglary, and the robbery, and what have you. And you can do the same thing in your bar. And we've done it for a
Nice.
long time, where we take a map, and it's old school stick pen. And I'll get a bar owner who doesn't understand why they're having so many fights at bar number 2 in the back. And I say, just do me a favor, just for a month, every time you have an argument, an over-service walkout, or a fight, take a different color push pen.
Uh-huh.
Well, I can see Venue Tracker, My Venue Tracker, being tied in from their POS system and their night counts or their week counts for pours. And all of a sudden, you start to see where the overpours were, where the lack of money on the register was, from the head count, from the register, from the POS
Irresponsible
systems.
bartenders overpouring, yeah.
Correct.
Over-service issues.
Correct.
which are
As
huge.
the security
Yeah.
thought for My Venue Tracker. And now you can tangibly see which bartender is making it or not making it or stealing it,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, and that's such a challenge in our industry. Everybody's stealing from the owners. I mean, we're the dog getting everything piled on top of. It seems like, that's just part of the industry. We understand
Yeah,
it.
it's just how much can I mitigate that, and how much can I use training and technology to mitigate?
And there's really
the
no
losses.
controls in place. I mean, the controls for door cover are non-existent right now. There's just no controls to check that. There's no controls for trends even. Even when you're looking at your trends, your POS systems don't tell you hour-to-hour counts. They don't tell you guest counts, your traffic counts. And that's really the information. Some of the other apps out there, right, they track, oh, this guest came from 9 miles away. This guest came from 7 miles away. This is her, and this is, and the thing is, if I don't know who my guests are, the heck am I doing in the
That's true.
industry in the
Yeah.
first place?
Yeah.
So I don't really care. We don't care about that information. We're hard, fast, and dirty, and we want the raw information that's needed to make decisions and make
It's
good
a business.
decisions.
It's a business decision, and that's the way to do it, to be better informed.
Yeah.
No doubt.
There's some great tools out there, you know what I'm saying, that track that kind of information, and they're more in depth. But we're looking for speed. We understand that it is so if the system isn't so
Quick.
simple to use
Yeah.
and quick. If there's any faults at all, the people aren't going to use the tools.
And then it just goes wayside. You probably invested a lot of money and
Exactly.
it's not doing anything for you.
And you know, we're looking at it's so simple. We're going to offer a free version. Always going to have a free version out there. There's just no history, so it's not going to remember.
So
things.
part of it's going to be the subscription base where you'll be able to tap into the dashboard, get your information, have
Have your history
year to year,
week to week, month to month,
It's
year to
so
year.
simple. You just go into the sales tracker, click on the day. It shows you how many people came in, your sales, your comps. It shows you everything. It's super easy to use.
Well, that sounds like a fantastic idea. Again, Chris, we're going to wrap it up here, but I'd really like to thank you for making the time to sit down with us and talk. We really do appreciate it. It was great to hear your story and what you got going on. Again, your website is openingabar.com. What else? We have myvenuetracker.com is where they can find the app. A Little Black Bar book. They can find that on Amazon. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we wrap it
No,
up?
I'd just like to say thank you, guys. Thank you, Robert, the Superman security guard right over here. I want you to know that he's wearing a Superman shirt under there. I can see it under his nice button-up shirt.
It's not my shirt.
I can tell you.
I had to borrow it.
Again, thank you for joining us. We're going to take a short break. When we get back, we'll close up the show. But again, Chris, thank you for joining us. We'll be right back.
Thanks, man.
If you like our show, visit nightclubsecurity.com for more information and access to free resources. Remember, that's www.nightclubsecurity.com.
All right, and welcome back. That was our interview with Chris Lenahan. Some really good information, some interesting stuff that he's doing.
Do you think the guy's busy enough?
He is super busy. We actually had a chance to talk to him a little bit about his breakout session. Similar to yours, he did a workshop here in Vegas, and he did a little bit different.
Yeah.
He was interactive. He tethered everybody. He actually tied people together, and they had to complete a task and figure out
problem solving their bar into success. That's something very similar to that.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And if you'd like to learn more about Chris, again, his website is openingabar.com. He's the author of A Little Black Bar book, which is available from his website. He also has a YouTube channel. If you just type in Chris Lenahan or openingabar.com in YouTube, you can find some videos that he has. I think he's got over like 200 videos, just his experiences on a build out, different topics, a lot of good information, a lot of good things to listen to. Robert, did you have anything else you wanted to?
No, buddy, I'm set. I'm happy.
So Robert, if they want to find us on Facebook, they search for
Nightclub Security,
and Twitter is
@BouncerCoach.
And we haven't mentioned it before, but we also have a YouTube channel. If you search Robert C. Smith, we have a few sample videos of our training there as well.
We'll get some more content on there. We're trying to decide how to put the content on there and what we want to put on there. We want to make it, because it is going to be something open source and free. We don't want to put our good stuff on there, but we want to put some good stuff on there.
I think probably the first thing that we'll be posting is we're talking to Dave Imes with Black Diamond Radio about doing an instructional video for him. So that's probably going to be the first thing we put on. But again, that's on a long list of things to do.
Yep.
What else? Oh, you know what? We posted to Zune, which is the Android platform for podcasts. So if you're on Android mobile, you can get our podcast through Zune. Just search Nightclub Security. And I think that's about it, Robert.
Yep, we're good.
All right. Thanks for joining us here at the podcast.
Manny's distracted because of the
we got all this stuff going on in the background. I can't focus on multiple things.
We're good, though.
So thanks for listening to the podcast. This is Manny Marquez.
I'm Robert Smith.
Be nice.